Hey guys, welcome back to the Existential Lounge. Big episode 11 today. Um, Today's topic is that incessive mm, desire that I think a lot of us have to be this exceptional figure, whatever that means to each of us. Um, whatever being exceptional is, whatever this great thing is, but I think we all have that want to be great in a sense, and a lot of us feel like that's not fulfilled.
Yeah, I think I'm sure there are a lot of bioevolutionary sort of beginnings of why that's the case. I think that we want to be optimal mates. I think that through greatness we correlate that with leaving an impact that perpetuates through time,
Mhm.
and that is a sort of vessel for our soul, our kind of being to continue on in reality
Yeah.
through even after we've died. Um, but yeah, I think that all of us, especially with watching movies and seeing superheroes and all these fictional characters or even real characters, that like there's this sense of like each and every one of us were born for greatness, and that's something that we're striving for and want to bring to fruition into reality. And there's this pressure that we can feel that can many times feel overwhelming and kind of like we don't know where to channel that at times, especially
Yeah.
if you're on a journey of figuring out what you want to do in life.
Yeah, definitely. I think also another thing that plays a big role is that as kids, we're kind of sold the story that we're supposed to be exceptional, sold the story that we're supposed to be this huge thing, this almost main character.
Yeah,
And slowly, as you keep getting older and older, after you've been fed this idea for so long, the world kind of starts reeling it back in, like, whoa, you're supposed to just fall in line.
yeah,
So there's that like big juxtaposition there where on the one hand, we've been told all of our lives we're going to be great. We're going to be a Da Vinci or whatever other great you want to think of. And then every job you find, everything you do being almost this assembly line,
yeah,
robotic thing.
yeah. Kind of just falling into place in society, into your dutiful role, rather than feeling like you are finding your place that is begging of you to utilize those skill sets in yourself that have been refined in a way to where you love the skill sets that you love using, but also ones that you've honed in on and that you find uh, you can separate yourself from the masses with. I feel like that's generally what we ought to be going for in life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels like no kind of
One of the biggest moments where I felt that societal pressure, not societal pressure, but just that I'm not exceptional. It was the day I graduated college.
mm,
I was sitting there with all the other people who were about to graduate, and this
yeah,
is not my big day. This is
no,
everyone's big day. This is just another normal thing that
hmm,
for a long time it felt romanticized in my head, like I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to be a
yeah,
first generation college grad. And you came down, you were in the stands, and you came down, you asked me how are you feeling, and I told you I feel like I'm not the main character.
I remember that.
um, it's almost like in movies you see graduation day and the camera is on the main character.
Yeah,
I felt like I was an extra.
yeah,
I felt like this is just another rung for the next assembly line.
yeah. I see that. Especially taking into consideration all of the people around the world maybe graduating on that same day too.
Yeah.
Um, and you're just kind of wearing the same thing, going through the same motions as the people that are right next to you. I think that it's kind of symbolic of exiting that doorway, and then I don't know. It feels like more individualities on the other side, but really it's kind of just the same thing. You're
Yeah.
just falling into more little spaces that were waiting for you to just fall into. Yeah, I see that frustration with that, where
it's such a huge frustration because, again, I just, in my own experience, I guess, like coming from immigrant household, all of my family, well, I'm a first generation American, so my parents came here.
Yeah.
Um, you're kind of fed this like idea, like you're that first generation US born person, you're going to be amazing, you're going to do these great things, you're going to change the world, you're going to be the first one to go to college. Like, we didn't even finish high school, you're about to go to college and
Yeah.
get this degree. And while, yeah, all of that felt nice, it didn't have the payoff that I thought it would my whole life.
So what would have been different if you were in that circumstance? Because I'm thinking like I think so many things can be less special if we look at them in particular lights. You know, like let's take Elon and like 1,000 years from now or something. I don't know. I'm sure there are really people that have made massive impacts on technology or
Hmm.
just innovation in some way, and suddenly it's like, well, I'm less special now. I didn't persist in the forefronts of the human minds
Yeah.
and society for 2,000 years. They forgot me. I'm in some dusty book on the bookshelf that no one touches. I'm sure so many greats exist like that, where at the time they were revered. Years later, they are dusty bookshelf dwellers that no one touches. Um,
I guess it's the feeling that at least they got to be a book on the shelf.
but I feel like it's kind of moving the goalpost in a really um what's that word um not subjective but randomness kind of way.
Yeah.
What is that word I'm looking for?
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary. Because like, look, you represent something that your generation has not done. Like,
Hmm.
not your generation, what you come from, your people,
Yeah.
your lineage, like that.
But like, it's not that important in the grand scheme. Like, I get it, and I'm not like playing it down. Like, congrats to all the first generation grads. It is a big achievement,
Yeah,
but it's a small achievement in the grand scheme.
but
And that's,
everything is.
yeah, I get that, but I'm supposed to do more.
But that's still every great beginning needs to start with a step.
Uh-huh.
um, running a marathon, it all starts with just that first step. But and we can't discredit that first step, because without that step you wouldn't have gotten the second or the third or the finish line.
Yeah.
you know and I think that we need to take moments to reflect on each and every one of those little steps sometimes and be like, damn, like I did that. That step hurt, or this one felt good, or whatever, but like you did them. And
I guess it also doesn't help, and this is not in a like show offy way, but like that wasn't hard to do.
hmm,
I don't feel like any scholastic endeavor was hard to do.
I remember when we graduated and I lost it. I was like, I feel like I don't deserve this. I felt like some sense of imposter syndrome. It
Yeah.
was super weird. It was really weird. I really felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like I cheated the system or something.
Uh-huh.
It felt odd. I think that we graduated in a time where our college pursuit was screwed with COVID happening. And
Well, yeah, we were the first class that got an actual commencement ceremony.
yeah,
The one before us was online.
yeah, and I wonder if that maybe played a role in that. We had a very unique college
We
experience
did.
where a lot of it was online. A lot of it was like not feeling like we
Hmm.
were truly integrated into the world of the school that we belong to.
Yeah.
And I think that in many ways, I think some of what we're feeling right now, this lack of completedness, I think that we both feel that kind of cheated feeling in a way, where there was an emptiness. There's like this, we some amazing song was playing and it just never came to the crescendo, and it was kind of just like, all right, well, that was
Yeah.
that. I feel like,
Looking back, it definitely, college felt like a blink. Like
yeah,
blink and it was gone.
yeah,
Um, I just, even when it was in person, and then when we went back in person for the last like it just never felt like it was testing me. It always felt like more of the same stuff that I always did going K through 12.
mm,
Um, just let me scream some information at you. All right, here's a piece of paper. Write that information back down to me.
You know what I think a
Um,
lot of that is kind of reflective of is like I think that when did you come to that conclusion that going into politics was not like a thing that you
well, I think it was the first time we ever brought that up in general that I wanted to go into
true.
politics. But yeah, just to fill you guys in, at some point during high school, I thought that my path was going into the political realm. I thought that I wanted to be this like bringer of change that like made things so different and so better than what they are. And at some point during college, I think it was the second time that the DNC stole the nomination from Bernie, that I kind of just I became soured to the whole way that the system works, and saw that even if in the like best case scenario is I'm as good as Bernie Sanders, and his best case scenario is getting cheated out of the nomination twice, never actually being able to do anything, and getting pushed into a corner, into a closet rather, where he doesn't get to say anything.
Mm.
And I just saw that as the biggest waste of life possible. I mean, hats off to Bernie. He's put in the years. He's been out there on the battlefield, metaphorically speaking. But that's the life that I couldn't live with. If I got to 80 and was like, well, I didn't really do much, even though I did everything right.
So taking that into consideration, that was at a time when we were at school, right?
Yeah,
I think that the testing part, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but like maybe it's that kind of direction fuel, that like juice of like, whoa, this seems like something I could really want to do instead. Maybe had that been a factor that was like
I
at
think
play
yeah,
more.
I definitely I was like a from when in high school I figured out that that's what I wanted to do. I was kind of like this rocket, just on like a rampage roll path
Yeah,
going towards what I wanted. And then at some point, it kind of like just ran out of fuel and left me stranded in the middle of space.
yeah.
And it's kind of where I'm still at. But yeah, I think that plays a role when a very like honed in rocket kind of just became aimless.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I feel like that's the frustrating part where tying into a big topic that we wanted to talk about today regarding self acceptance and bettering ourselves. And it's weird because like we there's a pressure to like accept yourself as you are, love yourself and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you recognize you're not what you want to be, um, figuring out ways to still love yourself regardless is a difficult thing. We made an analogy earlier regarding like, you're making a recipe, right? And you're like eating the food, but it doesn't taste good yet. It tastes
Mm-hmm.
awful. It for now. That's because you're a couple ingredients in, but if you just keep going, then it tastes better. It's like, well, you're lying to yourself to say that like it tastes good or that it's pleasing to interact with the food as it is in
Yeah.
that moment. It's being dishonest. And how
I think that a reason that I personally have like an aversion to that idea of love yourself even before you're at whatever thing you want to accept is because I think that idea has been taken to like the extreme pendulum end of like toxic positivity,
mm,
where we've just told everyone you're supposed to be happy with what you are. You don't need to change anything. You're perfect. Everyone's perfect. Everyone's a 10 out of 10.
yeah,
Like, no, we're not. We're not. Like, stop this lie. And that toxic positivity world really turned me off because it breeds
it
complacency. It
does.
breeds mediocrity.
Yeah.
And so in my
And
mind,
delusion.
delusion for sure, where everybody's walking around saying I'm a 10 out of 10. Like, we're just not. Everyone just isn't.
Yeah.
Um, and so when we start getting into the idea of like, oh, you have to learn to love yourself, I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable in the idea of saying I love myself. I'm happy. I'm okay with where I'm at because I know I'm working towards something, even though I don't even know what that something is, but I'm working towards it. I'm putting in work. And so I'm happy with the process, but I'm not a finished product, and I can't be happy with a non-finished product.
I see that. I also, on the other hand, see that like at what point is a human being a finished product?
I will never be, and
Um,
that's why I think that the greats felt that way. I think all those people that we always say or did some great thing, Da Vinci didn't stop when he finished the Mona Lisa.
yeah.
He didn't stop when he painted some great painting for the Medici or some great sculpture or all these other things that he did. He was like, "Mm, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet."
I say, I think what's important is to also, I think, lay grounds for what does it mean for one to love oneself to begin with, though. Like I'm kind of toying with that in my brain right now, and I think that there's a utility in. I think to me, a practical way of looking at it is because I think love yourself and everything can sound very grandeur in a sense, but
Mhm.
I think for me, a simple way of looking at this, correct me if I'm wrong, let me know what you think, is um, we've addressed before, we all have a voice in our head that doesn't stop speaking. Um, Maybe for me, I'm thinking of this in this moment, kind of just spitballing. Loving yourself can be find a way to reconstruct your perpetual voice in your head in such a way to where it's not your enemy, to
Yeah,
where it works with you.
definitely. I think yeah, that makes sense. Where we're not when I say that I don't love myself in the like more broad sense, it's not that I'm like constantly beating myself up. I think that finding a way to make that voice constructive as opposed to destructive
Yeah,
is the important part.
yeah.
And
Because I don't know what else. Like,
but constructive also doesn't mean if that voice is just telling you you're perfect. You love what you see in the mirror.
yeah.
You love the person that you are every second. Like, no, I don't. I'm dissatisfied with a lot of aspects of myself, and that's why I have a reason to get up and go change those, right?
Yes, but I'm gonna challenge where we can love other people that have a lot of things that we want them to work
Yeah,
on, but we're still actively saying we love them.
yeah.
Why does that change for ourselves?
Because I think there's a sense of agency that changes that. The
That's
agency
funny.
changes it. That individual is like separate from us. They're a person there, and I can love aspects of them, and that encapsulates the them because I don't have power over the things I dislike about them. Because if we're being honest, there's not a person in the world that you're going to say I love you in your entirety. That's just not true.
Mm,
There's aspects of everyone that we dislike,
mm,
and but those factors aren't in our power to change, so it doesn't make sense to hold those factors against people, whereas in ourselves we have that power to change those. So I think it makes sense to hold it against ourselves, because if we don't, then we're just becoming okay with those parts of us that we don't like.
I think is it like in this like overly romanticization of like imperfections, eh, like when I say it would almost seem boring if someone were a hypothetical perfect, but then that also doesn't make sense because if they're perfect, they literally are perfect, so that's enjoyable. But I
Yeah,
feel like imperfections kind of give us something to work with sometimes in a
yeah.
way that feels inherently like we're driven towards something. I think that like in the same way that we crave a mission, we crave an issue, and we crave picking this thing up and moving it to another direction because it's better there than
Mhm.
here. Um, Imperfections within the complex dynamics of a human's character give us that opportunity.
Yes, and I also think we always like circle back to the same point with us, but I think that that's more common in what men look in partners because we do like to fix problems.
Mm,
So it makes sense that a perfect partner is not something that a man usually would want. I don't think that would make a man happy.
yeah,
I think being able to help an individual be a better version of themselves is
yeah,
more fulfilling for a man.
yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. Especially, I think some. I mean, this goes with anything, but I was going to say, especially if you have a tendency for just the type of work that is involved in that. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like the required empathy, the required openness,
Yeah.
introspection, the communication. Um, I really enjoy that type of fixing or working with other people through, and so
Yeah.
I can definitely recognize how I'm definitely, I could lean more towards that type of being where, yeah, imperfections, they're fun. There's something, they exist as something for us to take, and they're opportunities to connect deeper with someone. I think
Yeah. I
even
think when
friendships.
two people join to fix a problem that one of them have, that only
Yeah.
strengthens the relationship.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you and I have, like, in in our own beings, have had so many different things,
Yeah.
and like in literally taking the time to address all of them together has definitely brought us closer and has been more enjoyable than if they didn't exist.
Yeah, I don't think
um
if the day we met at our dorm, we were just like perfect Dr. Manhattan type beings.
yeah. Dr. Manhattan.
Like there would have been nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think that also, I think funny, it makes sense with the character I just brought up. I think that if there were these perfect people and your partner was this perfect person, that'd be isolating. It'd be lonely.
Look
And
at what
Dr.
he
Manhattan
did.
is lonely as
He like left Earth to go on the moon and just sit there and contemplate.
yeah. He was,
um
I forget the exact words, but he says that he's like tired of talking to people. He's like,
yeah.
this isn't fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that perfection is having no problems. I think perfection is this like subjective thing of
For sure.
where there are problems that we can deal with.
Yeah, because not being able to deal with them is a
Then it becomes a negative. Yeah,
yeah,
like if it's a
workable problem. It could be fun,
yes.
or in the moment sometimes it could be not fun, but
Also, in recognizing that we're not perfect, I think there's a sense of community, a sense of I'm not alone if the person I'm with is also not perfect. Whereas if they
yes,
were perfect and
that's a
I'm
good point.
imperfect,
Yeah,
I'm gonna always feel not good enough.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think that
Which is a big thing. I think random just sidebar relationship advice. I guess
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, it's I just lost it.
You're good. You're good. I agree. I think that when people, at least in my own experience, I would openly like to. I like to carry myself in believing that I would be the first person in any room to like point out a shit ton of flaws within myself, and
Hmm.
I think that something that makes me enjoy that so much is because I kind of look at it as like a sacrifice that I know in my head other people, like, they we all just harbor so many imperfections and we try our best to like hide them, like,
Yeah, I
you
feel like a
know.
lot of the social game is who's best at making themselves look perfect,
Yeah,
but
it's
the best
exhausting.
interactions happen when we're all like, it's okay, hey guys, we're not
That's
perfect.
what we were talking about in a past episode. I forget which one, but like, pointing out the mistakes. Like,
Yeah,
we are eating missed food, like literally making making the awkward thing obvious makes
yeah,
it the
because
awkwardness
it's only
disappears
awkward because we have the
because we're
air of
trying to
like needing
hide.
to be perfect.
Yeah, yeah, hundred
That's
percent.
the issue. Yeah, and it came back to me, by the way. What I was going to say
Oh
is
yeah,
that the idealizing your partner is never a good thing. I know that it sounds nice to say that they're perfect for me, etc., etc.
yeah,
But when you idealize your partner and put them on this like perfection pedestal, you can start feeling not good enough, and that just starts gnawing at the back of your mind.
I see that.
It can become a really bad scenario for you where you no matter what you do, you don't feel good enough.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense.
So you know how we were saying about the whole toxic positivity thing, though.
Yeah,
I think this is where we can quickly start falling back into that same issue, but on the opposite side, where I was going to say that I am much more inclined to be able to point out all of the negatives I see in myself than any of the positives. I think a lot of the times that I'm having a mental low, you need to be the one to remind me that like there's positives in me. Those are hard for me to see, and I think that that's that balancing act that we do need to play with what you were saying with self acceptance and self love, where
Yeah.
that hypercritical wanting to be better every day can just become you focusing on the bads of you.
Yes, and not even focusing on what you have. That's why, um, in the same way that we can look at what we're grateful for in life, um, sometimes we have to look at for what we're grateful for within ourselves.
100%.
And I
Yeah,
don't do that enough.
I
And
definitely don't do that enough.
yeah, and I think that making that a regular habit can just deepen that kind of peace that we have that we can have within ourselves.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I think that the idea of self love is complex though, because it's hard to put a finger on what that even means. I
Yeah.
think that like a part of it we could argue is I find enjoyment in my own mind and
Hmm.
being who I am and the way that my thoughts and perceptions are constructed in my mind. I'm also, you could say that you're proud of what you do and how you treat others. And all of these in a combination, tons of other things, literally, you can name a million other things in accordance with this, that all of that in summation kind of outputs this like feeling of, I, you know what? I saw this cool, where was this? I think it was on a Chris pod, of course. But him and some other guy were having this conversation, and become a person where you'd be like, I'd buy myself a beer, like
Yeah.
I'd do that, and I think that's awesome. I think that's a great way of looking at self love. Is, you know, become a person, or maybe you already are a person that you look at if you were a stranger and be like, you know what, that person has some cool stuff to offer.
Yeah.
That person provides a safe space to be whoever that is that they are.
Approachable.
Yeah, this person's welcoming, this person's respectful, this person's all these different things. And like, I think you and I need that. I think you and I need sometimes to look at things from the external separated perspective. I think it's
Yeah.
hard for us to like look in the mirror and kind of do those things. I think that like for like when we're in situations, pretend that like a friend was giving you advice right now. What advice would you give yourself? Right?
Yeah.
I think in that same way that like the self-love thing is like if you were some stranger wherever, like is that a person that if you were to approach, would you leave feeling good?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a great barometer.
It is. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, just I go back to that idea that it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to focus on those goods. I think it's easier to give advice than to like be able to do it for
It's
yourself.
also practice though, because we both just admitted that's not something we even do often. I think
Mhm.
in like anything else, if you're not consistently, sharpening or flexing the muscle of like introspective positivity, and not toxic positivity, but genuine, like, did I do something today that was admirable?
Mhm.
Do I harbor qualities that like I'm like, these are good, I respect these, keep going with them? um I think we'd answer yes to probably more than not. I think that like we're just hard because we want to take what we have and push it even further
Yeah.
and like be even better and better and better.
So I think maybe a good practice would be to like highlight on both sides, highlight things that happen throughout the day on both sides. Because I think if we're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
say what did I do that was admirable today, we can quickly fall down the rabbit hole of toxic positivity
Absolutely,
where we
yeah.
don't better because look, I did something admirable. I'm good. I'm a good person, etc., etc. But likewise, if we're also only looking at the bad and the things we can improve on, we can quickly fall into that like just ugly hole of self
Yeah,
hatred.
absolutely. I think that both of us definitely, like, we could do 10 good things in one day, and like later on in that day we could be asked like what good did we do, and we're like, it was just a day. Like, we hold
We're
ourselves
so
to,
good we don't even notice.
I don't it's not even that though. We're
I
just
know.
we're so hard on ourselves to already be there that like
Yeah.
in order to be great, we need to do so many good things that it's like we start each day at a good deficit. Like we're already like we
Yeah.
need to build our way to like, okay, now
I
I'm a good
think that
person.
it's this feels weird because it feels kind of like tooting your own horn, but I think the mark of a good person is that you don't notice it because you're not doing it for the sake of being good,
Yeah.
but just because it's what you do,
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't hold a door for somebody because I'm like, oh, that would make me look like a good person. No, it was just like, let me hold the door for somebody.
I think though that let me know what your thoughts are. I think that being good starts as a conscious effort and slowly or quickly becomes an unconscious effort.
Yeah,
I think that like being truly virtuous isn't this is supposed to be good, so therefore you did it out of some like responsibility that you had to like contemplate. Whereas the man that like made this that practice and it's automatic intuition, it's just like this is me. It becomes you.
yeah,
It becomes almost inseparable to like your identity in a sense because you're doing things impulsively to be good, because you've like actively wired yourself to be such a way.
yeah. And I think that's why, like I said again, that it's kind of hard for us to notice those because that I think we're kind of with day to day stuff, we are kind of at that point where it just kind of feels automatic to do the virtuous thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the years of like practice, reading a lot of philosophers' ideas on ethics,
Yeah,
it kind of just becomes second nature.
for sure. Yeah, it does. I think that yeah, just taking that time to definitely, I agree with both. I think both should be done. What could I have worked on today and what did I do well? I think that we are
Yeah,
again
I
just
think that's something I'm gonna actually start doing
yeah.
as part of like my daily journaling is gonna be pointing out goods and bads that I did within that specific day. That
Yeah,
might be a good practice.
yeah, I think that'll cultivate more of a balance. There's people out there, I'm sure, that are listening that are hyper positive, toxically positive, and then the toxically negative people. I think that probably most people fall into either or schools.
Yeah, it's hard to like actually foster the ability
The
to be
middle
in the
ground, I
middle.
think, just takes more work,
It
most
does.
work.
It 100%
Yeah,
does.
it usually always does. Finding that being the balance is almost always going
Yeah,
to
and I
require
think
more
I'm
work.
definitely on the side of the negative.
Likewise, for sure. That's
Yeah,
why
I
we
think
could
if somebody just picked up my journal and read, they'd be like, "This guy needs help."
100%. Well, I meant like not for you, but like I
Oh
as
no,
well,
for
for
me,
sure.
yeah.
um, yeah, I think that I think ambition can do that. I think ambition blinds you to the good that you're doing. I was listening to a pod where it was saying that like um, when you're beginning something,
Hmm.
you want positive reinforcement is usually optimal for people that are starting something, whereas people that are experts in something, I'm not saying we're experts in anything, but they benefit more from criticism,
Yeah,
which makes sense. Like, you take LeBron and like he doesn't want like, oh, you're doing great at dribbling. Like, no, what can I improve on to just
that
that
makes
much
sense.
further?
No, actually,
Yeah.
that analogy makes it make more sense in my head. Yeah, when you become really good at a thing, you don't want to hear that you're good at this thing anymore.
Yeah, no,
Like, yes,
you know
it's
that.
in a very almost arrogant way. I know, but like, what can I do better?
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like um, with doing the right things and self betterment, I think that a lot of the things that we do on a regular basis we aren't new to, and I think that you can begin to live in a world where you're just criticizing yourself. You do all these things that are you should be proud as hell of yourself for doing on a regular
Hmm.
basis, but they just become like, all right, what? Like, okay, I didn't win a Nobel Prize today. Like, so
Yeah, I
today,
guess once you keep setting that um, the status quo higher and higher and
yeah,
higher, the ones down here start feeling like they don't exist anymore.
yeah, but they're wins. They're wins. We
Yeah.
can't forget that they're wins. I think that's something that can make days feel less laborious, less just this dull grind that I have been feeling.
But likewise, again, I feel like I can easily fall into like the trap of just not advancing if I do something like
I
that.
think there's a healthy balance though, because remember
Yeah,
the both.
everything's a healthy
What could
balance,
I
100%.
improve on? What did I do well?
Yeah.
I think again that same logic that we just
I,
applied.
I just have, and again, I know that what you're saying is right, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying from like a introspective look, I suppose. I have predisposition to just
I as well. Like, oh, what you read for an hour today, and your
good for
room's
you.
clean, and like, yeah, you helped someone
Where's this
out
career
of
you've been
depression.
talking about?
Yeah, exactly. When you hold such high standards for yourself, the the pillars that help you be a we can't be blind to the pillars though, because we're not getting to whatever thing that we want without those things. I think
Yeah,
that they
100%.
require frequent tending to, frequent observation, frequent just like, hey, is everything good here? It's kind of like a ladder. We can't forget about the bottom rungs. Yeah, we want the top rungs. We want the rungs 100 rungs above us, but
But you
like,
can't climb there without these.
yeah, we're not getting there without those like little bottom ones, or the damn stilt things holding us up. Um,
It's a balancing act for sure. Yeah,
mhm.
finding that balance is the hard part, though.
It is. It is. I think though that there is a it's going to be subjective to a point. It's going to, like, some level of frequency is going to work for some people and some isn't for others, like all things. But I think that it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a general rule that most people can approach is just a daily journal thing. What could you improve on, and what did you do well today? Very simple. And I think that frequent practice.
See, but then I'm also, because I'm just trying to think of like, hey, what would I have written today or what would I have written yesterday? Um, I think I would hold myself to a standard where like writing very simple things would seem like not good enough. Because a lot of our days we just become monotonous. Like they blend together. Monday to Friday, you're going to work,
It's most of
go to
life
the
though.
gym, go to home, eat,
Yeah.
sleep, repeat. So it's hard to find something like a situation that I found myself in to do something exceptionally good enough that I'm like that's worthy of writing down as my good for
I don't
today.
think that they always need to be exceptional though.
I know, yeah, but I'm saying that uh, this sounds weirdly arrogant, but I swear it's not trying to be. It would seem beneath me to like write these really mundane things like, yeah, that's the good you did today. I would be ashamed of writing that in my journal.
I understand that. I really do, and I relate. But I also think that if we're constantly doing exceptional things, I feel like even the exceptional become mundane.
100%.
And
Yeah.
I think that we need to look at things and like a where are you in life? What do you currently have the capacity to do in regards to greatness within the means that you currently possess? And are you operating within those means well? Like, I think with relation to what we can do with where we're at, I think that like that relativity is going to be really important to look at and apply. We have to look at whether the great that we want to do is realistic and in accordance with the means that we have. You know, um, because I could every day, read about kids going hungry and being like, damn, I could be saving kids right now or something. But
Hmm.
like, do I have the financial means to do that? I don't. Um, so I think that there is it sounds bad, but I think it's just true that we have to settle sometimes with regards to where we're at and be okay with what we can presently do in
Yeah.
regards to the good.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, but again, I would just feel like that's not worthy of writing down. Like, yes, I accept that right now I couldn't have done anything else, but what I was able to do seems so mundane
Okay,
that
hold on.
it.
Let me challenge that. I think the value is not just from the writing down. I think the value, some of the best value, in my opinion, is from the frequent practice of like framing your thoughts and perception in accordance with positive actions
Mhm.
on a regular basis. You're gonna be sucking more positivity from life. You're gonna
Yeah.
be seeing not only life in a more positive life, but yourself. And I think that the pursuit isn't just, all right, cool, I held a door for someone earlier, I did that. You're actively looking back and remembering and flipping through your day to find the good. And I think that
But again, when your perspective of good is like up here,
I get that, but look again. That's still the basis of what I'm saying is that we're training our brain to see more good.
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of what it boils down to. If we're just constantly just like always seeing bad, always seeing what could be improved upon, there isn't a balance with that. That this practice would help in rewiring the mind to just gain more positive, to see ourselves like in a, even if they're really small things, and like, yeah, our ceiling's really high for ourselves, those are still little pebbles we're throwing in the bucket of like, I'm a decent being.
Yeah.
Like these are irrefutable receipts of I'm doing some good stuff. Yeah, they're just like
Yeah. I
little
think that's
whatever. I helped some woman across the street. I said good morning to everyone that I walked by, and I smiled and whatever, and said thank you and whatever. Um,
yeah. I think reminding myself that I'm decent is
yeah,
something I need to do more often.
really freaking do. You need to be smacked with like a you are decent foam hand or whatever. But like, um, yeah, I think that remember that I think
That's
is
the
the
goal of this. It's not to write
correct.
down like some impressive feat, but rather to
Yes.
remind yourself that you're decent.
Yes, remind yourself that you're decent and rewire your brain in such a way that is has more of an inclination to take more of good, to more likely to see yourself in a positive light.
Yeah.
I think both of us, and I'm sure many others, would benefit from that.
I think that's a byproduct of having high expectations for yourself.
It totally is. Totally
It's.
is.
I promise you that none of the people that were great were sitting around saying I'm great when they hadn't done anything.
Yeah,
It's just part of it. Like
I agree. I think it is more often than not going to be part of it, but I don't think it has to be that way. I don't think it's exclusively like
I think I'd challenge that.
so. I think
I
that
think you have to. You have to beat yourself up to be great.
yes, I think yes. I think that there can be healthier than not ways of doing it. I think
100%. Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
saying that everybody thought they were a worthless nothing,
yeah.
but I'm damn sure that Arnold didn't win however many Mr. Olympias.
I think it was 8,
It's crazy.
6 or 8, something like that.
Yeah. By looking at the mirror and saying, "Yeah, I'll win it again next
Yeah,
year."
I think there is a suffering in looking at where you are and where you need to be. I think though that there could also be an excitement, but like when you hold yourself to that level, I think that like I don't know, maybe this is like toxic positivity flowing, but like if you're doing a thing and you love the thing and you want to get like over here, but you're over here, there can be an excitement knowing that like I get to do this thing so much more and just keep doing it until I finally get there. You know, it doesn't need to look. You don't need to look at it in this. Just because I need to get here and I'm here, it doesn't mean that I'm shit. It just means I have to put more work into a thing that I love or
Yeah,
a thing that is
100%.
cool.
That's easier to do when you know what that thing is.
100%. I think that the more of the suffering comes from the not knowing and
Yeah.
kind of just like
Feeling like you're in limbo.
yeah,
Yeah.
which we're both in. It's wonderful.
If you're listening, you probably are too. So we're all in limbo together.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think yes, that you have to be hard on yourself in order to be great.
Yeah.
You have to. But I think that you can be hard on yourself and not call yourself a piece of shit or say that
Yeah.
you're crap at this thing or whatever. It could just be like, I got a lot of work left to do and this is the path and I'm determined to go down it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you have those two things, the determination and the vision, I think you don't need the toxicness. You don't need the shit internal dialogue to do it. I think that the shit internal dialogue for many people, especially for us, can be fuel. I think it could be fuel that. Hold on. I think it could be fuel that may. It's like short little boosts, but you use it long enough, and it turns to like you're just pouring olive oil into your engine rather than gasoline.
Yeah.
And eventually it turns to like you can't take it. You're like sludging because you're like this internal I hate myself. You begin fucking hating yourself.
Yeah.
Depression. You like what are you even doing anymore? Because all you hear is this voice of like you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough. Rather than like the other side of that, like, hey, I got more work to do and I'm doing things that are valuable and that I enjoy doing. Like, let me just keep doing them. I think that one can work but hurt you quick and you burn out faster, and the other I think is the marathon. One is the sprint, the other is the marathon.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to consistently look back at the fuel that we're pouring into our engine and reflect on, is this a long-term fuel or is this a, quick fuel? Because we could like, let me use another like example. People going through breakups, or people going through like some emotional turmoil, right? We can use a lot of that as like a, I'm gonna better myself, and like you go and it fuels you. Then that starts to fizzle out once that emotion kind of fades, because you get over shit. Eventually the
Unless you
pain.
don't.
Huh?
Unless you don't. Unless you're 7 months in and you're still, that's the only thing that's keeping you going.
Valid. um More special case, but yes, valid in its own right for sure. um a lot of energetic fuel that we utilize can fizzle, and it can turn into pain, and it can turn into like, I need another fuel source now. um yeah, we just need to keep looking at our
Yeah.
fuel sources.
No, I had this thought, kind of unrelated, but kind of related as well.
Okay.
That, you know how we have this framework that no evil people exist. There's
Yes.
no such thing as a bad person, only people who are,
Bad actions.
yeah, bad actions, and people are just a result of their circumstances.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I think I had this idea in my head that whole notion was an idea I was trying to convince myself of in order to believe that I wasn't a terrible human being.
Okay.
Because if no one's evil, that means I can't be bad either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think that, like, I think we spoke about that before.
Did we?
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense. It definitely makes sense. I think that we can cultivate worldviews that conveniently fall in a place where it makes us able to more easily live with ourselves
Yeah.
upstairs. Um, I think that
I think there's a term for that actually when you
there
do
is.
adopt
I don't know
worldviews.
what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, um,
But yeah, for the longest time, I thought that I had like a mini existential crisis about it because I'm like, do I even believe any of the stuff that I yell off at people?
yeah. I think also the free will, lack of free will concept can definitely serve that same sort of
It definitely
thing.
can,
Yeah,
yeah.
where it's like, oh, you have no idea what you're doing and you don't know where you're going in life. Okay, well, you could have only, not known, when you didn't know. And
It's like you're making universal excuses for yourself.
yeah, 100%. We can fall prey to those. We just got to be aware. Again, I think that, like, that goes that tethers back to what I was just saying about, we need to be cognizant of the type of fuel that we're putting in our system, because that, while it looked like a good fuel at first, it was like a good fuel in disguise as a bad fuel, because behind that, like, positive worldview, which, yeah, it's great, but like, you looked at the why you were implementing that worldview, it becomes a negative, it becomes harmful, because you're running from yourself, in a sense.
Yeah.
um and that's where it can become toxic.
I think just recognizing where that fuel is, what fuel we're putting in there,
Yeah.
and where it's coming from, knowing that we need to be able to put sufficient fuel to push forward because whatever our end goal is, we're not reaching it if we're not using the right stuff.
Yeah. And again, a lot of that balancing act between work hard on yourself and self-acceptance, that there can be a healthy balance and a reframing of certain parts of that, with less negativity in the head. Like, you can be hard on yourself and you can strive for a really high ceiling and great things without necessarily degrading who you presently are and what you've currently done.
Yeah.
And I think through that subtle shift, um, can we see more light and gain more good on a regular day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And I think don't lose that idea of grandeur that we touched on when first opening here. That idea that we're told as kids that we are meant for greatness. I don't think, don't lose that, because everybody who ever did anything great didn't lose it.
Yeah.
They held on to that and they kept pushing. And if we told more people to just be normal, then we wouldn't have Mona Lisas and David, and um, we wouldn't be a decade or so from getting to Mars.
Definitely.
Hold on to that. Hold
Yeah,
on to it dear. Hold on to those ideas that a lot of people look at you and tell you are childish, but I promise you that they're only childish because in their mind it's not possible.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and we'll see you again soon. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.